Здравейте, вие сте със Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов. Подкастът, който всеки вторник ви разказва истории, които вдъхновяват. Днес е 24 декември и с екипа се чудехме какъв подарък можем да ви направим. По-рано през годината имах удоволствието да направя 40-минутен разговор с Томер Тагрин. Той е съосновател и главен изпълнителен директор на Yotpo. Компания, която помага на брандовете да създават изключителни клиентски изживявания и компания, която подкрепя Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов вече почти 4 години. Под негово ръководство компанията се разраства от малък стартъп до технологичен гигант, оценен на над 1,4 милиарда долара. Също така обслужват над 30 000 бранда по целия свят, като GoPro, Патагония и IKEA. През 2020 година Томер ръководи стратегическото придобиване на българския стартъп SMS Bump, благодарение на което Yotpo в момента имат офис с над 120 души в София. С усилията на Томер и целият екип на Yotpo в тези 13 години до тук са привлечени инвестиции от над 400 милиона долара, които превръщат Yotpo в една от най-бързо развиващите се компании в сферата на e-commerce. Изключително благодарни сме им за подкрепата и за възможността да запишем този разговор по време на тяхно събитие Impact през март. Въпреки техническите проблеми, които имахме с звука, се надяваме този епизод да ви хареса. Също така искам да благодаря и на другите спонсори на подкаста, като Superhosting BG, Store Storage, които ни дават препоръки за книги и подкрепят регистъра, а и книгите, които споделя Томер в нашия разговор, е именно Безкрайната игра, Екстремна отговорност и How to be spiritual without being religious, според мен са страхотни. Също така искам да благодарим на Хак България, компанията, която се грижи за това IT обществото в България да има качествени срещи и готино общество. Разбира се и на Орешак, които са възможност да направите качествен подарък за някой, който се за нетчийските произведени в България неща. Разбира се, благодарим и на Амбицио Home и на Swipe, че през тази година направиха подкаста Една идея по-добър с техните скромни подаръци, които приехме с отворено сърце и огромна благодарност. Също така, вашите финансови дарения правят всичко, което правим в Фондация Свръхчовекът възможно. От записването на епизодите до месечните срещи на живо, т.е. подкаста на живо, който всяка сряда се срещаме с гост от миналото и разбира се посещението в училищата. Благодарим ви от сърце. Ако искате да продължите да ни подкрепяте, може да го направите, като отидете в сайта на Свръхчовека, горе на десен ъгъл има едно бутонче подкрепи ни. То ще ви отведе до страница, в която ще разберете как точно инвестираме вашите дарения. Пожелавам ви спокойствие, яснота и увереност. И нека ви разкажа какво трябва да направите според мен, ако живота не върви така, както ви се иска. Направете нещо добро. Така както аз направих в началото на 2013 година, за да може моят живот да се обърне в положителна посока. Пожелавам ви приятно слушане и се надявам да ни дадете обратна връзка, след като изслушате епизода с Томер Тагрин. Благодаря ви и до скоро. Правило ли ви е впечатление колко по-добре чувате Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов в последната една година? Голяма част от това се дължи на невероятните Децибел. Децибел е българска компания, която произвежда шумоизолационни и акустични материали. Един от съоснователите на компанията е Диана. Тя ми гостува в 329 епизод, от който може да разберете повече за тях. Като слушатели на Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов, имате възможността да се възползвате от специалната отстъпка и да оборудвате своя дом, офис или студио. Възползвайте се! Преминаването на Свръхчовекът с Георги Ненов към видео нямаше да бъде възможно без подкрепата на Dynaphos. Затова с Монката искрено ги препоръчваме като място, на което можеш да намериш продукти и решения за фото, видео, бродкаст и кинооборудване, както за любители, така и за професионалисти. От създаването си през 2003 година екипът на Dynaphos има една основна ценност – да работи за клиентите и за общността. В техния шоурум или по телефона ще получиш качествена консултация за това как лесно и изгодно да оборудваш твоето студио. Разбери повече на dynaphos.bg. Използвай промокод SUPERHUMAN21, за да получиш свръхчовешка отстъпка.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Have a lot of time here.
I do. We've been working together to make an impact here in Bulgaria for the last 3 years now.
Thank you for that.
No, thank you.
Thank you.
It's something that started out of absolutely nothing, just like an iPad and idea, and now it's here like 400 episodes later.
Amazing. I always love the founding stories of something. I'm a big believer in like those are the stories that probably define eventually the entire initiative.
Yeah, it's that's why I'm here to ask some questions, because I've been browsing internet and there are just 3 or 4 interviews of Tomer. It's insufficient, and you have so many things to share.
Thank you. I don't like to give interviews.
So I feel privileged. So thank you for inviting me to your impact event. It's an amazing day. I've been here since just before lunch and hearing everything that you mentioned in one way or another. One thing that struck me immediately was the infinite mindset. There are topics like playing the long game in everything that you do on the podcast too. So when you've been doing Yotpo for the last 13 years, so when did this idea came to mind that the things should be done in a way that's persistent in time?
Yeah, so first, thank you for coming. Actually, we are big fans of yours, and you definitely had an impact on Yotpo, so thank you. And I'll say that, like, I think the first time I came to the knowledge of the concept of infinite mindset, I actually read it in a book. And then there's like a famous author, which I love, called Simon Sinek, and that actually has a book about infinite mindset. And if to conclude, like, maybe I'll try to simplify. I'll try to simplify it in a way is that there are 2 games in life. There's, let's say, football, soccer, basketball, tennis, doesn't matter, where it's a game, there's a start, an end. I compete against you, and there's a clear winner and a clear target. But then there's different games in life. I'll give a few examples. Right? No one wins in marriage, or you can't win raising kids. Or, I don't know, let's say we play PlayStation and we start playing a GTA, and then you tell me, I want to move to whatever, FIFA. I'm fine, I just want to keep on playing. So the notion that there are 2 separate games in life, the problem is that in the game of business, we are very used to playing finite games, not infinite games, right? Like, what's the next quarter? Let me look at public companies, right? The market judges them by, like, how much you're doing the next quarter, the next year. But when you look at, like, zoom out, he did, like, a very interesting research that the best companies or where the vast majority of success relies, it's on the infinite companies and the infinite players. And there's another advantage of doing something for a long time. You understand that short-term doesn't mean anything. Like, you can have a great year. Truly, let's take maybe, again, like a great example, let's take Google, right? One of the most impressive companies in the history of mankind, massive success. And for those of you who've seen Sergey giving a lecture inside Google why their AI sucks or why the AI is so horrible in Epic or whatsoever, and everyone's saying Google is going to die now, and they're not going to die, but that definitely, like, there's the notion that you need to be very outcome driven. I think it's very tough to disconnect from our Western reality, but definitely, like, the best people, the best companies in the world are like the infinite players. So it's a concept probably like 2 years ago I started to get more into, and I'm like a huge believer that this is like the most important thing in life.
You said 2 years ago this idea came to you. Let's take you back 13 years back in the beginning of Yotpo. While developing the company, you were also writing an article each week. How did this help you get better in what you do? Because usually startup founders are focused on the most important thing at hand, which would be developing the company, marketing, getting the right people, etc.
Yeah. So I actually use it as a marketing stunt. So what I did early days is I thought that if I'll be like one that's writing something in like a big publication, it can give us a lot of exposure to talent, to customers. So what I did, I actually scraped like TechCrunch, the Next Web, a few other places, and I wrote my article and I sent that to them, to the editors, like it's already in the website. I built like a mini site and I sent them, and eventually the Next Web like bited and said, okay, let's start writing for us. And I wrote about the entrepreneurial journey, and it was helpful in the beginning. I think it taught me a lot about like creativity and achieving goals in a creative way. But definitely it was like a great journey. What happened is after like 2 years, the value of it became like so and so. So I pretty much stopped and they replaced an editor. But yes, I just did like a trick with their like front end to show them how my articles would look like, and it was actually very well received.
That's great, because while looking at entrepreneurs, I've never had a founder of a flamingo company on my podcast. Thank you for being here. I was about to say the word that of non-existent animal, but I really love this part where you were mentioning that what you do, guys, around your offices around the world, and here in Sofia is here to stay. It's a real animal. So the flamingo mentality, I loved it. And
Thank you.
How did you grow to this idea of grasping things out of written content, like from the books or writing articles? Were you a passionate reader beforehand, or you, like most of the founders, start with the late startup, all the...
Yeah. So in general, I think that I love stories. I'm like really driven by stories. I'm a big believer that companies are built on stories, and what people remember eventually is stories. So I always loved stories, and writing is something that I like regardless of work. Yeah, I'm now trying to write something for my kids that doesn't go in so well, but writing is definitely like something I really like doing. And what I learned is that eventually what people remember, right, is how you made them feel. It's not any kind of data you show them. So, or maybe the Steve Jobs sentence that the storytellers are the most influential people in the world. Because if you're able to convey a story and pass that idea through, I don't know, think about Martin Luther King or even Obama, right? The story of Obama, maybe it's bigger than Obama himself. But I think, so stories for me have been like a huge part. I think for me it comes very, I don't know if intuitively, but I'm like a kid, right? I like to fantasize. I like the ideal, like, so I really like stories. So for me, stories are a way to express myself.
Last year there was a Jordan Peterson's event here in Sofia, and he mentioned that people don't perceive through facts. They perceive through stories. So just to build upon your argument, there's, going through the books, there's one thing that I always ask founders, entrepreneurs, social entrepreneurs that are visiting the podcast, the most influential books. Would you say that The Infinite Game is one of them? And if yes, what would be the other 2 or 3 that you are willing, that people are willing to refer to?
Of course. I mean, very much, I call it like a spiritual journey. So I got sick and tired of all the business books. So I stopped reading all those hard things about hard things, or 0 to 1 or whatsoever. I read those, but it's not actually, wasn't that influential. For me, I think like the most influential thing were like maybe definitely the infinite mindset. There's one that's called like Extreme Ownership, about like the Navy SEALs. It's an amazing book. And maybe the third one that I recently read that was for me like very, very deep. It's called like Being Spiritual Without Being Religious. That for me, I found like a lot of similarities on like leadership there as well, although it's a very different type of a book.
Yeah. Earlier you were mentioning some values that I won't go deep into, but values are very important, and what you were describing in your way would be values. Yeah. How are they being developed? And you're sick and tired of all the know-how books and going into like observation, reflection. Taking care of yourself was one thing that you mentioned. It's important. I love it. This is how I started the podcast myself. So what would be a story that you would like to share in a way that people start thinking more about their own well-being? I'm a parent. I want to give a good example to my kid, for example. This would be a story that I share.
Yeah. So I had like a very big health condition myself. I had cancer 2 times, and I think the second time, what a lot of people don't know, the second time was right before like a very big event for Yotpo that we were preparing for like a year. And I think eventually you understand, or, you know, maybe I'll do reverse engineering. The best leaders in Yotpo, my biggest worry for them, or the best people in Yotpo, is burnout. Like, that's the number one problem, because when you run a marathon, when you truly run a marathon, not just everyone said that they run a marathon and after 3 years they run out of air. When you really go a long way, and people are very connected to what they do. I think burnout is like a huge problem. And usually burnout happens because you're not happy. And I think people are not focused enough on their happiness. I think maybe retrospective, what my cancer or my condition made me is be much more authentic and much more focused about my happiness and what makes me happy. Because I think that's the meaning of life. Like the goal of life, if there is such a thing, is to be happy. And so I'm much more focused on my happiness. And for different people, it means different things. There are people that, I don't know, being all day long in work is happiness. And there are people that it's not. They need like a different balance or different harmony. But I think like just bringing that more to like the level that you're actually able to think about it and have the mental capacity to deal with happiness is something very, very important to anyone that's actually in a high-paced environment. Because high-paced environment is tough. And it's not like easy. And if it's not easy, it means that you really need to take care of yourself. And for me, taking care of yourself means like making sure that your happiness is in the right place. And again, different interpretation for different people, but it has to start from the core of like being happier.
Recently, I was doing research on a talk that I was giving on stage, and I dig deeper into Roger Bannister's story. And this is the man that ran the first 1 mile in under 4 minutes. And I didn't know that what made him do it was the innovation to use pacers. So using pacers as an analogy of what you were saying, there were people allowing him not to run too quickly, too early, or too slow, so he can be on track to get the record. Everyone was making sure that he runs one lap in 1 minute. So this might be similar to what you're saying. So people that are pacing you in a way that's important to you. You have 120 people here in Yotpo's office in Sofia, growing through time. These are the pacers, the people that you work with. So how do you start off with the smarter of two? I've heard you saying a couple of times with Tomer, of the two founders, and now growing it to hundreds and hundreds of people around the world. How do you do it? How do you pick the right people, the right pacers to work with and be happy and make an impact like Yotpo is doing at the moment?
Yeah, so I think it starts with like, you keep on going, like it's a team sport, like it's not an individual sport and building things, like you have to do it together. So like in Yotpo, there are people that are much more talented than me in most of the areas. And you really need to be like authentic enough to really allow them to do that. And like, I don't think I would ever be able to build an office or whatever, do what Avichai, for example, is doing, or what Galit is doing, like other people in the company. And I think knowing, maybe I'll tell a story about it. I'm a huge, I used to play tennis, and tennis is my sport, and I'm a huge Roger Federer fan. Like he's, for me, like Superman. And there's a video in YouTube that Credit Suisse brought Federer, and they interview him for like their senior management. And in one of the questions, he said that if you want to be a great tennis player, work on your weaknesses. If you want to be a phenomenal, the best in the world, work on your strengths. And that's what's going to make you lift up. So I really try to focus on the things I'm doing really, really well and improving them. And the things that I'm not doing well, just to give other people. And a lot of time it sounds like strange to people, but they truly get like full autonomy and full ownership to do. And for me, that's my way at least to do that. Alongside with, again, being very authentic about it, because working on your strengths means you need to be very, very honest about what are your weaknesses. And because you can't be everything for everyone and just start and walk.
I just need to make sure that your mic is properly set, because I have, just a second, I'll get this thing, put it under here. I'll just hide the flash, sorry, the flash.
It's free.
Yeah, just want to make sure that you said that Yotpo wants to be more present on social media, and
yes,
we're going to make sure that the quality of the content is good as well. I love this about the strengths. I've heard it from Gary Vee. Maximize on your important things for yourself, the things that you're good at. I'm good at interviewing and meeting people and talking to them. And in the beginning, I just Yeah, and I started with a person that was technically savvy, so he can do the editing, and I can do what I love and what I'm good at. I use the metaphor of a pirate ship. There is a pirate who is the captain of the ship, and he can do things, but not everything. He cannot be the navigator. He cannot be the cook of the ship.
It's a great example.
All these things. One thing that talking about, my mind comes animations. Bulgaria has 1 unicorn, and Israel has 90 plus unicorns, 3 decacorns, which is huge. What's the difference now, knowing a bit of like the cultures of the organization around like
I think Israel has 2 big advantages. One is the army. So when you look at this, Israel historically, right, like cyber, still today is like the largest place where Israel thrives. And even when you look at like the big companies, a lot of them like Checkpoint or SolarEdge came from like army unit or army technology. So the army, like the fact that like people finish the army after 3 years or 5 years and probably worked on like the most advanced technologies in the world without even going to school is a huge advantage of talent. And another thing, I think Israel, right, it's a country that we are used to some kind of survival. So the culture of like taking risks, the culture of like doing whatever it takes is really, really important to like starting something. And there's another thing that like Israel used to be called like startup nation. Like these processes takes a lot of time because only after you have like a few successful startups, then you have like experienced executives, then you have investors that come. Capable. And I think, so in order to build an ecosystem, it really takes time. I think like what we're doing here is a great example. Like I hope that many more startups will come out of it because I really think that it's a great place, very like great culture actually. Like one of the things I got from the energy of today, for example, is like the level of like honesty and humbleness that are so important to succeeding in life. So I think it's just time, and time brings, money. Time brings like Israel now has all the major VCs have like entities in Israel, which is massive. Like when we started, it wasn't the case. You have like experienced executives, you have experienced entrepreneurs. So it's an entire ecosystem that's being built, but it starts with like 1 or 2, like always. So when you zoom out in retrospective of time, I really think there's like the future of the tech. I'm not that familiar, by the way, with the education system, because I think that's another big component, like the ability to keep on like producing talent every year is really, really important for scaling up. So and again, I'm not familiar at all with like politics and the government, but the investment in technology needs to be there. And then if that happens, I actually think it's a phenomenal framework to a lot of like tech entrepreneurship and tech industry.
You got into army and military training. You've been through training yourself. What can entrepreneurs benefit from it? Because here in Bulgaria, for example, we have now the professional army, and it's not mandatory to go. You can choose to go or not to go. And the feedback from the past times were not that good into it, like developing yourself as a person.
I totally get it.
So what did you learn for yourself that's helping you now?
So first I'll say, me and Omri, like the other co-founder, the smarter half, we're not a good representation. I don't know if not good, we are a different representation. So a lot of the founders came from like the intelligent unit. We actually learn a bunch of stuff, technology that really helps you. So let's take Checkpoint, maybe the largest cyber security company. The technology that actually started was technology that the founder developed in the army. So a lot of them are taking the tech themselves to the private world. I think what I learned, and I think it's very different from a professional army, because first I learned how to deal with difficulties. I used to do like 8-hour shifts in places, and you just learn to deal with difficulties. I think that's something important. And the second thing maybe I learned is just like put a target somewhere, or let's say you're navigating in the field or something, just get there, whatever it takes to get there. And I think that whatever it takes type of mentality is something that definitely Omri and myself got from the army.
Yeah, being focused on what's the mission.
Yeah, just get there.
And you were describing dealing with difficulties, and in one of your interviews, you mentioned that you're big into stoicism.
Yeah.
That came to your life with it, and this is dealing with difficulties, the philosophy that helps us a lot with it.
For sure.
Any reads on that you're going?
Yeah. So first, stoicism, just to give everyone, it's a portion of the Roman philosophy that's basically practicing on or giving you like practical. For me, I found it very practical on how to deal with difficulties and ensure happiness. So there's a lot of techniques I actually use. Like it actually was something that was very profound on me, like the introduction to stoicism. I'll give you maybe one example that I still do that really helps me. So they tell you like once a week, once a month, like not too much, but not too little, when you're alone in the shower, in the car, whatever, on the train, just like close your eyes and imagine that your wife is divorcing you, that you got fired from your job, that your friends are angry with you, that someone took your money from the bank. But don't think about it, like feel it. Feel it, like really try to feel that it's happening. And when you finish it, after 7-10 minutes, you say like, oh, I'm so thankful I have so much in my life. Like, thank God I have that and that and that. And it actually increases the level of gratitude and happiness that you have. So this is just like one very small technique of stoicism that really struck me. But I think stoicism for me was a great framework or tool to deal with some of the most difficult times I knew, and I still practice it on the day-to-day. So I highly recommend to anyone that's like going through a difficulty or experiencing, just like to have more tools on how to deal with it, because it's complex.
Yeah. Love the story. Through my mind comes the King Solomon's story about these two shall pass, and this notion of, yeah, it might be in a bad spot, but it's going to get better.
Yeah.
And then this keeps me also on my toes when I'm feeling that I'm happy. Like you might make a mistake. It won't be too bad, but sooner or later it will happen.
There's a good sentence my therapist says that like a trauma is a gift in disguise. You just need to understand and see that.
Yeah. How long have you, because in Bulgaria there is a stigma about visiting therapists, especially for men. Me, myself, I do it for the last 4 years because I think it's like an emotional fitness. It's something that keeps me in check and helping me be happy. How did you decide to go, and is it a cultural thing? Do more people do it in Israel then?
Yeah, so I'm not sure in Israel. It's a good question. I started, like the first therapy I started was because of the trauma, because of the cancer and with it. And I actually think it's probably like the best decision I did in my life. Now the joke is for my wife that for every important relationship I have like a therapist. I have like for myself, with my wife, with the kids. Like I had like a lot of different therapists. I can tell you that I recently started going to like a coach that one of our VCs, Bessemer, introduced me to. And in the first session, I asked him, like he started talking, and I asked him like, what is coaching? Like it's starting to feel to me very close to therapy. And then he told me a sentence that also profoundly changed how I view what is growing. He basically told me, Tomer, it's not coaching. And this is a guy that works with like 100 public CEOs, like a very business person. And he told me, Tomer, it's the wrong question. It's not what is coaching, it's what is growing. And growing is understanding your ego so you can put it aside to become the man you can become. So I think for me, therapy is better understanding myself so I can deal with what life brings on. And I think like the internal journey of looking inside is something that in the Western world we are very not used to. Yeah. Specifically men, by the way, very, very not used to talking about our feelings and what drives us and why I'm angry and why I'm happy, and really understanding that. And I find it maybe the most fascinating journey I did in my life. There's another good sentence in Buddhism that's saying that the longest journey in our life is the 15 centimeters between your brain and your heart. And that's like a hell of a journey to do. So I'm super happy you're doing that. I think it really makes us like much better human beings.
The thing that comes to mind is what's the difference? What's being wise? Being wise is knowing others. and being enlightened is knowing yourself.
Yeah.
So it's a great thing. It comes back to what are your strengths. People tend to focus on external events rather than internal things, reactions. So thanks for mentioning it. Talking about VCs and capital, you found your co-founder like easy. It was a friend in the university.
Yeah.
You said the smarter one. But what would be your advice to people that are starting companies here in Bulgaria or anywhere around the world on finding the people or the person to start a company with?
Yeah. So I think in general, before you to companies, I think the most important decision is in your life is who do you choose for your journey. And now I'll micro it to companies. It's literally the single most important decision you'll do is who do you start a company with. So first, like you need to get to know the person really, really well. Really, really well. And I think what's important about it is like you need someone that can compliment you, but most importantly, someone that you can lean on. That, you know, in tough times, and everyone has tough times, like you can actually count. And I think that's like so important. So I think the best thing I can advise, and it's a very tough thing to do. I was very, very fortunate. And in that case, it's just like spend a lot of time, make sure you get to know, and don't rush yourself to start something, because I know so many founders, so many companies with like horror stories. That companies got shut down, that founders are not having like so many things because of it. So just take the time and make sure you really get to know the other person like as much as possible.
Yeah, piggybacking on the infinite game that you mentioned earlier, there's Naval Ravikant's saying that not only don't do things that are finite, but also don't create relationships that are finite. Don't spend a second with a person that you won't be spending your life with. I think it's a great thing. What would be a question that I know you're not big on interviews, but nevertheless, I'm sure that you've read a lot and heard a lot of stories firsthand. What would be a question that nobody asks successful entrepreneurs?
What's a question that no one asks successful entrepreneurs? So I think it's that, like, are you happy? Like, are you like in a good place? I know so many people that succeeded like in unbelievable levels and they're miserable. They're like, there's a good TED talk, by the way, of like J.K. Rowling that wrote Harry Potter about after she wrote Harry Potter, she got into like massive depression because she understood that the biggest thing in her life is behind her. And it doesn't matter what you do, it will never be as big as Harry Potter. And I think a lot of successful entrepreneurs are people that like just pushed or were lucky, never mind, but a lot of them are unhappy. And I think that's a very, very sad thing to see. And when you see it up close, so I think a lot of the time people always talk about the success and about the ego, and they don't talk about the self. And I think understanding the self is much more important.
Yet here, the power of questions, like at hand, you can see how one question can lead to so many other questions. And something that came to my mind like 7 years ago while going to Germany, leaving my fiancée here in Bulgaria, and I realized the importance of trade-off. And what are you willing to give away just to get what you're heading towards, like you were saying? Yes. Okay. Where to go now? Talking about the important questions about successful entrepreneurs that are never being asked, what would be a lesson in these 13 years while managing Yotpo, like a business lesson for a company to start growing from the position that it was to people back like in Israel and now a massive company?
The business side?
Business lesson for like these 13 years in Yotpo, something that...
Yeah, so I think, again, it's like maybe the most, and it's a cliche, but like the most important thing in like business is like it's the team you work with, and it's like the customer you're serving, and really understanding your customer and really understanding their point of view is so important to so many decisions, like how do you build product, what type of brand you want to build, and again, authenticity. Like you can't fake it. You have to be authentic about it. Like you really need to get to know them. You really need to want to know them. You really need to trickle down that to the rest of the organization. I think that's like a very, very, very big lesson in my eyes. Maybe the other lesson is also not to be, again, too much spiritual, but like maybe one of the single most important thing is to ensure that you understand how you motivate people, but how you motivate them for the long run. It's something that you give it a lot of thought, because it really takes a village. And I know founders, like there are founders that love all the crazy founder that they think they're Steve Jobs, they're shouting, they're yelling, and Steve Jobs, there's only one, maybe two, Elon Musk, but most of us are not Steve Jobs. And you need to know how to engage your team, and just like demanding more and being that crazy character doesn't work. So I think that's one type of entrepreneurs that, a lot of entrepreneurs makes mistake. And the other one is, those founders that after $10 million ARR are becoming Yoda on LinkedIn, giving tips on how to eat, how to sleep. I hate those. And I think this is, again, people that are not authentic. Like they think that there's another good sentence that's saying, I'm not who I think I am. I'm not who you think I am who I think you think I am. And it's like a tricky sentence, but basically what it means is that they're trying to play a part of the perception of what they think a great entrepreneur should look like. Because they read it in a book or they saw it in a movie, and it just doesn't work this way. You need to be you.
Yeah, absolutely. Having a 3-hour-long podcast, which would be like the shortest episode in the probably the last 8 years, would be this episode here. So it's really all about the authenticity. I can tell you that, because there's a Bulgarian writer who lives in the States, in Kansas. His name is Ivo Ivanov, and he has this saying that everyone has a superhuman story inside that's waiting to be told. When people are authentic and they share, the stories come out. So going back to the stories, did you learn these lessons through like mistakes that you did, or what part of? Because starting a company, it's like growing a baby. It's like you're very not equipped on one hand, and the other, someone is relying on you badly.
Yes.
So making mistakes you mean taking risks. So did you take risks, and did the risks brought you these rewards, these experiences, knowledge?
Yeah, so I think we take a lot of risks. Like I always, the first thing I say to VCs when I meet them, by the way, that I'm the entrepreneur that hate risk most that they know. Like I'm a very risk averse, but most of the things I don't see them as risky. So it's a tricky thing, but I think that we did like tons of endless amount of mistakes, and I think surely that's the only way to learn. Like I don't think you learn by being successful. Like if you are successful without understanding the why, it's usually pure luck, and then luck gets you so far. So I think you have to take risks, you have to make mistakes, and these are actually like very growing experiences. In general, I'm like people that work with me for a long time, I'm all about like taking risks, everything. Find I'm actually too much, maybe want to try things, change things on the extreme side. But yes, we made like literally endless amount of mistakes. And there's a good Warren Buffett sentence saying that 50% of my investment in life were a mistake. I'm just not sure who is who. And I think it's all about trying and doing, right? It's you can't know which mistakes we did got us here and which mistakes we did hold us back. It's really, really hard to do reverse engineering of life.
Going towards the end of the conversation, because I really want to stick to the schedule of the event, I met Misho earlier today, and he said, please tell him to share a funny story about hiking. Would you mind sharing the story? I have no idea what he talked about.
So I took And I love doing hiking in the nature. By the way, when there's going to be good weather, we're going to all go hiking here. And I love it. I really, really love it. So I took Michael and Georg after I haven't seen him for a long time. I live in the States, and in my area, there was like great hiking. So I took them on a hike. And it was like a tough hike. It was like an easy one. And in the middle of the hike, Georg sat on a rock and told me I'm in the middle of a mountain. No, I'm like, that's it, I'm down. And he was sitting there, and I was like laughing. I told him, like, let's keep on going. The lake is like, whatever. In 20 minutes, it's only enough. I'm done. Like, I don't know what I'm going to do yet, but I'm not moving. I needed like for 30, 40 minutes to convince him to keep on going. But eventually he finished it, and he came to the hike with Crocs. Not a great move to do.
Yeah.
But it was like actually a great time, and it was very, very fun. There were two like hilarious human beings.
Yep. Now, talking about Michael and Georgi has been on the podcast sharing what brought them into the SMS Bump and then Yotpo and the acquisition, and how well prepared you were while talking to them. It was amazing to have this insight of the story. And now the office upstairs has like 120 people, and the team is growing. It will be great for more capable engineers, and not only people to support the mission, not only engineers.
In every department, and anyone that hears the podcast, please guys,
please do.
Yes, talent is the most important thing that we have.
Absolutely, and I really love this local talent mentality that you're heading into. Here is like the research center about the SMS product, which is amazing. It's like had
the email and the platform. It's like getting big.
Yeah, I think there's a new thing every week when I come to you guys to do, so which is great. Finishing the conversation with the advice that you would like to share towards Bulgarians in general to make our country and themselves happier and more successful, just like something that comes to mind to finish off the conversation.
I think happy and successful are two different things. I think to be happier, like again, you need to, maybe I'll say like I'm a beginning, there are two journeys in life. Your first journey in life is looking what's out there. You go, you travel, you experience the world, you date. And the second journey in life is like understanding what's inside there. And I think that's the more important journey in life. So as more you can understand yourself, and understanding the self is probably going to lead you to definitely happier moments. And I think on the successful side, it's very similar to Israel. The only way to be successful when you sell your technology or product outside of your core market is to get closer to the market and understanding the market. So also the market connectivity and really understanding why you're developing what you're developing, why you're building what you're building into who, is probably the best thing to build your context to be successful.
Great question. So thank you, Tomer, for being here and for this amazing event.
Thank you for coming.
And thank you for everyone that's been in the audience today.
Искрено се надявам епизода, който ви представихме, този разговор с Томер Тагрин, да ви е харесал. Аз самия от него си взех много, а именно за това как един човек, който управлява толкова голям стартъп, който е глобално разпознаваем, е изключително земен и приятен събеседник. Също така е изключително вдъхновяваща за мен историята, в която Томер разказа как е победил рака, и то 2 пъти. Благодарен съм за възможността, благодарен съм на вас за дарената подкрепата, за това, че споделяте разказите на вашите приятели за свръхчовека с Георги Ненов, и ви пожелавам една наистина магическа Коледа. Ще се видим на 31 декември, когато сме ви подготвили още едно малко подаръче от сърце. Весели празници!